The world we live in is an amazing one, full of passion, wonderment, and of course, fine wine. This is the story of one man's journey to fully understand and appreciate that world. So kick the tires and light the fires. It's time to ride between the wines.
It's Burgundian in style. Just a whisper of cherry.
Very nice legs.
This is so perfectly balanced.
Such an old world style.
Is this laced with tobacco? A total fruit bomb.
I say, so fancy!
And now we're recording.
Fun.
So,
It's weird to look at yourself though.
Right.
Okay. You're gonna
I like
edit
you have the
this, right?
shades on you.
Oh,
No, there's
okay.
no editing. I don't know how to edit. Welcome to Ride Between the Wines. I might be able to figure it out, but
It's okay.
This is
People who know me will know that I say weird stuff.
This is Kem Martz. She is from Constellation Wines, and we are heading on our way. Why'd you look at me like that?
I'm just.
I was like, you're from Constellation.
No.
And we are heading to go do an awesome wine dinner tonight, and it covers a whole lot of her portfolio. But the theme of the dinner that we're doing through all the different wineries that she represents is women winemakers, because I found out recently that Constellation has quite a few of these, so I figured we'd click this on and talk about some of them.
Yeah. Let's do it. So the first person that Mike and I were talking about earlier, kind of the matriarch, I guess, of all the female winemakers, is a woman named Genevieve Jeanson. She's very French. She is.
I'm covering up the sun. I think I got most of it.
She's amazing. She started at Robert Mondavi. She's the director of winemaking at Robert Mondavi right now. She really kind of just oversees everything because she's getting towards retirement age. But she really cultivated the whole environment there. It really made Robert Mondavi what it is now, and really got with him and really pushed his vision forward, because his wines are very, I would say profile-wise, they are very extremely varietally correct, but they also have that little elegance that I feel like a French winemaker can bring to it. But she started in 1976, and that was 10 years after Robert Mondavi first built his winery in 1966, and she's still there today. So she's been there for quite a while. Yeah,
she's seen the whole thing.
Yeah, well, she's French. She's going to live for forever because she, eats meat and cheese and drinks good wine.
But at this point, I guess she will have living here much longer in America than France.
Yeah, it's true. So she grew up in Bordeaux. So of course, that's the dream. And her parents were winemakers, but they didn't have like a traditional winery. It was more like, how you would do back when she was probably growing up
backyard
in like the 40s or 50s. Yeah, exactly. Backyard situation. But she learned how to make wine over there, and she went to the University of Bordeaux and really honed her skills, but decided she'd read a lot about the Napa Valley, and especially Robert Mondavi's new winery and contribution. And, obviously with all the contests and everything going on, she decided that she wanted to go and, go over to California and see if she could make wines over there, because Bordeaux is very full of winemakers, especially, it's kind of like now the California scene, everybody goes to UC Davis and gets out, becomes winemakers, but back then it was kind of the same thing. So she came over, and it's kind of the rest is history with her. But a lot of these other female winemakers that we'll talk about have studied under her, or obviously see her as an icon, and they go and consult. It's such a cool family out there, period. That's one of the neatest things I've ever learned from California, is to see all the winemakers come together and they consult and they go out in vineyards and they give each other ideas. Because I just feel like in this aspect of our job, it's so competitive,
right? And
we kind of share best practices, but we really, unless we're like really good friends with somebody, we're not just like, hey.
So wait, is it still like that out there?
I think it's still. Every time I go out there, it's like that. Like when you go, Constellation has this really cool thing that they do every summer. It's basically like a Tokalon Academy, that she wanted to start because she really wanted to promote. First of all, Robert Mondavi owns the most acreage of Tokalon. They own 285 acres, and Beckstoffer owns 80. So how much you hear about him, think about how relative that is. I'm sorry, I should have backtracked and even say the reason why she's in love with To Kalon so much is she did also contribute to making Opus 1 as well, back when Robert Mondavi was started that project too with Baron Philippe Rothschild. So
Right.
she's really big into that. So she started this basically week-long education, and I've gotten to go to it before. Stacey Schultz was actually with me that time. We had a really fun trip, but she brings on all, Beck Stoffer was there, a lot of people were there, and they basically do like a forum inside Robert Mondavi, and they all bring their best To Kalon wines, and we all taste them, and they talk about how special the vineyard is, and they talk about like the challenges they have. But that being said, that could just be all like them just saying that week, but you could really sense a camaraderie between them. They all were calling each other first names. They're joking about like, remember last year when it flooded and this, and it was just nice to see them, have a good sense of community out there. I think it's and I'm sure there's a couple of dicks, but like in general, sorry podcast. But I think in general, it does seem like everybody really does try to rally together, and I think that's especially so with the female winemakers too. I think because it's just so few of them. I think like 10%. I think of especially, I couldn't say
in
for
California, or
I think in California. I would have to, somebody needs to fact check me. I'm sure somebody will, but I think I know in California that's about right. I don't know what it is in the world, but it was honestly, when I was looking it up, I thought that was kind of smaller than, I thought that was a lower percentage than I would actually think. But I think it's really head winemakers is probably what that percentage is, because I do think there's a lot of females that might be assistants or work in the lab or do any of that stuff, but actual like head winemakers, I think it's a pretty low percentage. So it's something.
Well, it's definitely
that's growing.
Yeah, it's definitely growing.
Yeah.
The same thing with women's somms and every other part of the business. I think it's waking up to it.
Yeah, I think so too. And that's a really good segue for our next female winemaker is Nova Cadamatre, and she is now right under Genevieve at Robert Mondavi.
Okay.
She's the director, Genevieve's the director of everything there, but she's in charge mostly of the To Kalon vineyard, even though she really helps Genevieve as her right-hand woman and looks over all of the Robert Mondavi wines, and again really helps out with most of the wines that go into the To Kalon vineyard. Constellation also owns now Schrader, which is a very prestigious and all To Kalon period winery, and she also helps with their winemaking with Thomas Rivers Brown. So anyway, she is the only female master of wine in North America, which is really neat, and it's very hard to get that accreditation. I think my computer caught on fire if I even look at the test and be like, you're not that smart. But she's amazing. But not only that, there's really not a lot of masters of wine in the United States, period. So for her to be a female and a master of wine in the United States, it's a really great accolade that she has. And so she's able to go around and do, she does tons of judging, and she just obviously does a lot of education pieces for us as well. But
where's she from?
She's from Greer, South Carolina.
Well, I was going to follow. My second question is so when's she coming to visit?
I know.
When's she coming back home?
I don't know. I last time I said that at the GSM, of course, Shane wanted to jump right on it being in Greenville, but she needs to come back home and do a tour for sure. So I'm going to put in a request for her this year. Yeah, because she left, and what's interesting about her eventually getting to California is instead of doing the normal thing and going to school out there, she left Greer, South Carolina, and went up and she went to New York, and she got her degree in viticulture from Cornell, which is interesting because most people want to go to the mothership to get the education, but she wanted to go up to the East Coast and do that. But so really, and she's gone a lot of different places. She's before she settled at Robert Mondavi about 10 years ago, but she did Chateau Jean, she did Chateau Souverain. I have it actually in my notes. Let me look real quick. Sorry, I'm unprofessional.
Nova, if you're out there and listening, and I know you are, you could be sitting in this seat next time you come into town and have your own private chauffeur to drive you around on video.
Right. And I hope I'm getting your biography right. And Behringer is another one.
Behringer.
Yeah.
Nice.
So so she's a big staple for us and a super amazing woman. And I'm really glad that she's, you know, kind of part of the Constellation community for sure, especially with all her knowledge. So we're lucky to have her.
Well, that is awesome, and we are pulling over to this account real quick.
Okay.
So we are going to come back and talk more about it.
Okay.
All right, we are back in the car. It's a little later in the day, so the sun's almost completely down. So we're going to try to record a couple more before it's too dark. Glasses are off.
Glasses are off. You can stare into my eyes.
Where do you want to go next?
Okay, so we're going to go to The Prisoner.
Perfect.
Next. Just because that has a cool female empowered story as well.
Okay.
So we're going to start off, if some of you on this don't know, which hopefully you do, but maybe some of you don't. Prisoner started with Dave Finney. Dave Finney actually, this is a good transition for us from Robert Mondavi because that's where he was a cellar rat for a really long time.
Yes.
I know.
I like it.
I like the little connection. Robert Mondavi was alive at that time when he worked there in the 90s, and he, again, like I said before, his wines are extremely varietally correct, so they're good for blending. They don't really have, she doesn't really want to add anything extra to them, so most of them are 100%, they're varietal. So he got a good idea to start blending things together. He asked Robert Mondavi for some extra juice. He said Robert Mondavi was always a big, advocate and promoter of new winemakers. So he said, sure, take home the extra juice. Dave Finney started working on it. A year later, he had developed The Prisoner, which is super fast. So it became, Dave's baby, and really did, a huge, I don't know, they just did a ton for the Napa Valley and just for California red blends in general. It was really one of the first ones.
Yeah, absolutely.
If not the first.
Yeah.
I don't know. I asked you earlier. I'm like, I think it's the first.
First in my head.
First in my head, too. So he did that, and then he decided to do another one called Saldo, which is Zinfandel. And then he decided that he sold his winery to Augustus Huneeus, who does Quintessa and a few other things, flowers, that kind of stuff. Augustus has been around for a really long time in the Napa Valley. He actually used to own Franciscan as well. But when he did that, he stayed on as winemaker for about a year. And when he did, he hired on a woman named Jim Bellows. And Jim Bellows used to work for about 10 years under Joel Peterson, who's the pioneer and owner of Ravenswood. So it kind of all came together because Prisoner is so heritage blends is what they like to call them, but Zinfandel is a big heritage wine, and she's worked so well with Zinfandels for so long that he really picked her out for that reason, because he knew she would be good understanding that grape and knowing how to blend it and how to make the Prisoner, because clearly, as all of us know, we want to keep things as consistent as possible when something especially becomes like a cult classic. Yeah. So Dave worked with Jen for about a year and really taught her the process and then she took it over, and Jen is the person, she doesn't get much credit for this, but she really elevated the Prisoner. She got it up to 80,000 cases a year where it's at now. She created so many other additional wines in the line, like Blindfold, which is the white blend kind of sister to Prisoner. She created Thorn, the Merlot. She did Cuttings, which is the Napa Valley Cab, which is delicious. So she really kind of elevated the Prisoner to what it is. So as a strong female winemaker. And then when Constellation purchased it 3 years ago, I think. Yeah, that feels right. She got a hand in deciding who was going to take over for her, because she decided it was her time to also pass it along. And she had known Chrissy Whitman, another winemaker, for a very long time. Chrissy used to be the director of winemaking up in at Wild Horse, so she was up in the Monterey area. So she was there and overseeing that for a very long time. And Chrissy and her had just known each other. Chrissy actually wasn't a traditionally trained winemaker. She actually she was a biologist, and she always had worked in the labs when it came to winemaking. She was part of winemaking, but she was always in the lab component of it. She was never actually making the wine. And then her story is that she just finally just kind of fell in love with wine, and she fell in love in the winemaking process. So she would just kind of learn after, her job was done. Like, she would go out, watch the winemakers, and decided she really wanted to kind of start that skill. So she went back to school, learned more of the winemaking process, and then really, she worked in a couple of wineries, smaller wineries for a while, and then she became the director of winemaking at Wild Horse. And then what was cool is another one of a great program that Constellation has is called a Mega Council, which I was lucky enough to get to go to 3 years ago. And the coolest part about a Mega Council, there was a couple things cool about this year that we're about to talk about. First of all, it was the 150th anniversary of Simi Winery, and we're about to talk about her, the female winemaker there.
There's a lot of women important with Simi.
We all love Simi. So that we did a big celebration for that week of that, which was really, really cool. So the winemaker came and we tasted some wines, some early wines, some wines from the 40s and 50s they had pulled from the cellar that were really cool. But the really cool thing that relates to this directly is Mega Council is really set up to be more of like a forum. Like we have different people come and talk to us about what's going on in the wine industry. Like we taste a bunch of wines. We do a lot of like small group things, but they did a presentation about us getting the prisoner, and Jem Bellows was there, and she was talking about how, you know, prisoner was her baby, and that, you know, her whole history and everything she's gone through. And she started, you know, tearing up a little bit and was like, you know, I'm going to miss this, but Chrissy's one of my best friends. Chrissy came in and she was like, I would never want anybody else to make this wine but Chrissy. So it was really nice to see their sweet little dynamic between each other. And again, like kind of takes it back to that human aspect where, you know, I think it's one thing to look at wine on a grocery store shelf and everything just looks kind of like, I don't know, but really to hear the heartbeat behind it is really neat.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's really sweet. So to see those women interact and be so respectful of each other and so trusting, it was really neat. And to really see when Jen just got, you know, so, I mean, that's her baby, you know, and I think it's nice to see that side of things. So it was cool. And so now Chrissy's been doing it for the past couple years. She's created a couple things of her own. Since she was a big proponent, obviously, of Wild Horse, and if people don't know, Wild Horse is big on Pinot Noir. She's a really great Pinot Noir maker, and Pinot Noirs can be very hard to make because it's such a delicate grape. She started Eternally Silence, which is Prisoner's new Pinot Noir that I think is fantastic. And then she's done some cool winery only stuff. Like she has 100% Charbonneau there that she uses as a blending grape, but she makes 100% one for the winery. That's really
fun.
Neat and fun. And then recently, what Mike and I have out today is she did a lower tier side project called Unshackled, and this is really just something, I mean, essentially it's like you can get Prisoner for half the price in a way, where it's a little bit different of a flavor profile, so we don't want to take away from the Prisoner, but it's, you know, it's something that is more of an everyday wine for people as opposed to something that can be a little bit out of their price range, or honestly, you know, maybe it's too big and bold for some people. They want something a little softer. So she did this line that has a rosé, because she does do a rosé that's winery only for Prisoner as well. And then it's a red blend and a Cabernet. But she's been great, and she has an assistant winemaker that's also a female. Her name's Nikki Allen, so she does a great job for us. I don't know as much about her, but keeping it all female.
Unfortunately, everybody listening to this is probably going to have to try the second vintage of Unshackled, because this is probably not going to air for about a month and probably be sold out of it by that point.
Yeah.
But
mid-March.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe we can. Yeah.
I mean, if you don't get to it by then, you're gonna have to edit that out.
All right. Well, we just pulled over, obviously, so we're gonna come back in a second. All right.
Back.
We are back, probably for the final one. It's getting late.
Yeah.
Simi.
Okay. So, moving on to Simi. Simi has this is a long history of female winemakers. Very quick. Simi is the oldest winery in Sonoma County because in the late 1800s it was owned by two brothers originally that started it. However, they both died within 1 week of each other from the flu, and so one of the brothers' children, Isabella, she took over, and this is like 1898. So she, at 18 years old, you know, when she should have been barefoot and pregnant, according to that time.
Nice.
That's all we did, apparently, as women. She taught herself how to make wine, and she took over the winery, and she, you know, kept it until, you know, 1976 she officially sold it, but she stayed and she came to the winery every single day until the 80s when she ended up passing away. So never married, but you know, she just loved that winery so much. But she made it through Prohibition. She sold to all the churches. You know, she was credited with making the first tasting room because she took a wine barrel. It was on the same path people were taking to go to San Francisco. And so she had all this leftover juice after Prohibition was over. So she took a big wine barrel and basically turned it on its side and cut a little door and kind of made it a tasting room. And so people would drive by, so she would flag them down. They would come inside. She would give them a taste of her wines, and then they would take cases of wine back to San Francisco with them. So it's really neat.
Genius.
I know, she's so smart. So, you know, long history. It was Isabella for the longest time, and then I'm sure they had some people in between. Susan Luker did it for quite a while. She was actually the winemaker when we had the big 150th anniversary party I talked about, but she's moved on since then. I think she retired, but I'm not quite sure what she's doing now. But she ran that winery for about 20 years, and now we have a wonderful woman named Melissa Stackhouse that's there. She was also from UC Davis, but she's been in the wine industry for quite a while. She's from Sonoma, and she's perfect for that winery because she's only ever really worked for Sonoma wineries, so she really understands exactly like the terroir, and she really understands, you know, everything, you know, that the weather has to do with it, you know what I mean, everything coming from the Sonoma coast, and you know, basically how those vineyards grow, and she really works with the wines very well. But she was Jackson family for a while doing La Crema.
Okay.
She worked at Clos du Bois for a little while as the director of winemaking there. Her most recent place that she was at was Jay. And she was a big proponent of doing their sparkling there. And then she came over to us before she became the director of winemaking. Simi, she originally came over to us when we took over and bought Mayomi, and she became the official new winemaker of Mayomi after Joe Wagner sold it to us. And he stayed on and consulted for about 2 years with her, but she is the reason that Mayomi Sparkling exists because
of the Jay experience.
Because of the Jay experience, exactly. And she loved it, and she really wanted to do a sparkling. So she decided to do that. So that's kind of new to us. It's been about probably we've had it for like a year and a half.
It'll be our first wine that we're drinking tonight.
It's the first wine tonight. So it's and it's a really cool. It's 60-40 Chard Pinot, but what's really neat is that it's method champenoise. So that's really cool that she does it in the traditional Chardonnay. Champagne method, not Chardonnay method. So, but yeah, she's great. So when Susan left, they also asked her to be the director of winemaking over Simi. So she took over for that as well. And then she's started recently a little side project that she wanted to do because she has a really, really tight relationship with the Dutton family. And the Dutton family, awesome. Are great growers in Sonoma. They're very prestigious. They again
great
do
juice.
Great juice. They do Ramey and flowers and things like that. But they're 6th generation family, you know, and they really keep who they sell to, and their vineyards very tightly managed, and they're not just out there to make a ton of money. They really care about who they sell to, and she's always had a great relationship. So she really wanted to do something with their juice in their vineyard. So she started a pretty much on-premise only project called Cuvee Sauvage, which means into the wild. Hey. So she's doing that's going to be one of our wines tonight too. She does a Chardonnay and a Pinot Noir because of course those are the two main varietals that can really produce out of Sonoma.
Produce amazingly. Yeah.
So anyway, she's great too. So I don't know. Hopefully, maybe one day I'll get all the ladies together.
Oh, that would be great.
We can do a powwow.
We'll have to get a bigger car.
Yeah, that's true. Hopefully they can fit.
Well, we are clearly out of time and also daylight. So, Kem Martz, you rock.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
You know what?
Thanks for being cool.
I did not give you a heads up, and I have exactly 5 minutes left to ask you this question. We're going to drive in the dark to go over here where it's lit when I ask you this question. But I end all my podcasts by asking a particular question.
Oh, I should know this, but I haven't seen one. I'm sorry.
Wow.
I'm sorry.
You're going to be so...
I'm really into these mystery podcasts. I got to stop and listen to you. I can't even believe I haven't seen Renee's yet. All right, let's go.
Usually I have a good example of one, but an unpopular opinion. I want to know, and this doesn't have to be about wine. It doesn't have to be about anything. Like my stock one is that I I don't care anybody says Return of the Jedi is better than Empire Strikes Back. I know it's not what you're supposed to say. And also, Godfather 1 is better than Godfather 2. Everybody likes to pull out Godfather 2 as being like the great sequel that's better than the first, but it doesn't count.
Right.
So what is an unpopular opinion that you hold true?
Oh my gosh. Ugh. I know, I should have gotten a heads up.
You should have got a heads up.
I feel like I can't think. I've lived with baby brain for forever. An unpopular opinion that I hold true. I don't know. What have other people said? Ooh, you might have to edit this one.
One guy said that he thought weed should be legal, and I was like, I'm pretty sure that's a pretty popular opinion.
I think that's a popular opinion. I was about to say, I feel like I agree with the masses on a lot of stuff. That's like saying kids should be vaccinated. I think that's a pretty popular opinion.
Yeah, well, yeah, that they should be vaccinated.
Yeah,
I think that's
Not
a
that
popular
they shouldn't
opinion.
be vaccinated, or I don't know, something like that. Shit, I don't know. This has really stumped me. I'm trying to think of what I'm so combative about.
That you're actually okay saying on
I know, right?
my 45 person viewership here.
I don't know.
Well,
I don't think you should have to floss your teeth. I think you should go to the dentist twice a year and get them to do it. Is that an unpopular opinion that holds true?
You know what I think it is? I think that's an extremely popular opinion that nobody other than you would admit to.
Okay.
So I'll give you that.
Oh
I think
my gosh, that one's kind of lame though. I feel like I need to think of something better.
All right, so our last clip tonight is going to be after the wine dinner, and it's going to be completely in black, so you're not going to see anything because it's going to be so dark out here. And Kim's going to come back and give you a final unpopular opinion.
That's good. I'll have time to think about it.
But on the off chance
Probably
she doesn't,
a little drunk too.
Thank you so much for coming out.
Okay.
On the off chance that it doesn't happen.
No problem. We could go with the dental floss one.
I'll dental floss will be our
Okay.
standby.
I mean, it's pretty lame, but all
All right, bye.
Bye.